Hello? Oh, fine. Thank you. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today, and sorry for the late start. We needed everyone to come back from lunch. This is what happens when you have a session just after lunch. So first and foremost, I'll need to, based on the request from the comms team, to request you to please fill these two roles, because so that they can be able to do their videoing properly. Please, we'll crave your indulgence. And if it's possible to fill the front seat as well, that would be very helpful. Thank you. Please, these two rows. Nico, please. Chima, I'm going to put the ones I know their names. Chima, please, can we fill these two rows? Everyone on those two sides, please. Thank you. Okay, so we need to get to this because we actually have two sessions planned in 1 hour and 15 minutes. My name is Ibidun Oludipe. I'm an advisor under the GET.invest program of GIZ. For those that don't know GET.invest, I'll talk a little about what we do. We're happy that you're here to join our session today on powering electric mobility in Nigeria, which is something GET.invest has been very keen about. We're going to start our session, first of all, with a market launch. We've been working on a market insight in the past 1 or 2 years. Thank you for the timer. In the past 1 or 2 years, we've been working with quite a lot of stakeholders in the public and private sector to develop a market insight on e-mobility. So we'll have a session first to launch that document, after which we then go into the panel session for today to discuss with the stakeholders that have really been working in this space. Once again, thank you for coming. So, comms team, please, we'll need you to go through the slides now. So these are our panelists. Like I said, I'll do an introduction when it's time for the panel. But for now, we'll focus on the market insight launch. So next slide, please. Yeah, next slide. Thank you. So the launch is going to go through. Good thing I printed it. Sorry, I can barely see the screen from here. We're going to go through 2 phases, an introduction of GET.invest and our services, just a very brief one. Like I said, we want us to focus really on the panel session and the presentation on the market insight package in Nigeria. So for those of us who don't know GET.invest, we've had a lot of people come to our booth to ask about what we do. Of course, they hear invest and everyone already assumed we are here to bring the money, but I would want to let you know that GET.invest is an European program developed to mobilize investment in renewables in sub-Saharan Africa, Caribbean, and the Pacific. As part of our work, we work basically to support the one-stop shop for green energy investments in Africa. We support financiers to bring bankable projects, to support project developers to develop their project in order to bankability. Sorry, next slide. Yeah, so this is what I was actually given an overview of. We have a broad partner network of financiers, both locally and internationally, those that are interested in financing everything clean energy across market segments. Our program is funded by the European Union, Germany, Norway, Netherlands, and Sweden and Austria. We've been in the space since 2022, but basically our advisory service is focused on helping project developers to develop their project better, develop business cases, feasibility studies, and also make them bankable for the financiers that we are supporting to be able to fund their businesses. Next slide, please. Okay, so we walk through 4 different segments. First of all, we gather information with the countries that we work on, the markets that we work on, come up with financing solutions. Like I already mentioned, the countries that we're focused on is Sub-Saharan Africa, the Caribbean, and the Pacific. And what we do here, just as we already know, the market insight that we're developing today is part of where the information gathering is about. We gather this information and put them in a way that is useful to stakeholders. Also, we work in the mobilization space, just as we are here supporting the ARE in this event. We support GOGLA, we support quite a lot of stakeholders associations to go through conferences, cooperations and associations, finding projects that we can put forward to our financiers, our team of financial database. We also have the finance, please can you go to the next slide, sorry. We also have the finance system advisory. This system actually works with the mobilization of domestic financiers. We all know, let me use Nigeria as an example here, where we have quite a lot of financiers, except for 2 banks or 3 who are really working in the renewable space. Some actually see renewables as a high-risk sector. So we support local financiers to develop and look out for how to support financing in terms of de-risking mechanisms. We have trainings cut across DFIs, international financial institutions, and local financial institutions. So basically, our core focus is focused on the last box, which you see, the Finance Access Advisory, which is really why we are here, where we support project developers through 2 phases, the Finance Catalyst and the Finance Readiness Support. Finance Readiness Support, you'll meet Koye, one of our consultants that work in this space. You're still, previous slide, sorry. Thank you. I wish I could control sorry about that. So the finance readiness support works with early stage companies. Basically, we support them to build up their project business development, while the finance catalysts are the bigger renewable companies where we support them to upscale. And basically what we do is we tend to work with them, develop their business cases, and then put them forward really until they achieve financial close. Next slide, please. So basically the reason why we are here, we go to and you can also meet me at our booth or after the session if you want to know more about GET.invest, because there's quite a lot we're working on, but most of my colleagues in different sessions have actually been given briefs on what we're doing. So the reason why we are here today, which is to launch the Market Insight 2023 Market Insight package. Our package always consists of 2 documents, a developer guide, and 2 model business cases. So I'll actually brief you on what the Market Insight is about. For the developer guide, it's just basically to let you know the to-do, like the name implies, the stakeholders to work with, the financiers to work with, all stakeholders across all ecosystem of whatever market segment we are developing the market insight for. We give you information on how to go about it. And then the 2 model business cases is just to give you an hypothetical business to help you know what, how, and where to actually implement this package that we've come up with. We've done 4 market insights prior to now. The small hydropower, next slide please, sorry. The small hydropower and rural development in Burundi. We had the Uganda renewable energy cooling and processing. We had the Mozambique commercial and industrial solar application in Mozambique. 2 in Mozambique, actually, we have the renewable energy and IPP project for Mozambique as well. And lastly, the reason why we are here, which is the powering electric mobility that we've worked across a lot of stakeholders to actually develop for today. Before I hand over to our team of consultants, we did most of this work with GreenMax. They are our team of consultants working on this project. I would first of all like to say a big thank you to those that supported us in this. The NESP, the CEFA, TUMI, NOMA. We really appreciate your support in getting this done. And once Koye, I'll hand over to Koye now, once it's done with this presentation for anyone that wants to access the developer guide, we have a QR code where you can scan. I'll have one with me here, but we'll have them placed at our booths where you can actually scan them. So I'll hand over now to Koye, who is the Director of Financial Analysis at GreenMax Capital. He will be taking us through the market insight. Thank you all, everyone, for coming, and we hope you'll be actively involved in our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibidun, and good afternoon, everyone. Can you please show the slide? Okay. So, GreenMax, as consultants to GET.invest, we prepared, GreenMax as consultants to GET.invest, we prepared the market insights package for Nigeria, which is titled Powering Electric Mobility. The market insights package consists of the developer guide and two model business cases. Right? The developer guide essentially is a manual to guide entrepreneurs on how to enter into the market to tap the opportunities in the e-mobility market in Nigeria. So the developer guide has three sections. It starts off on a high level with looking at the e-mobility market in sub-Saharan Africa. We delved into the policy and regulatory frameworks in different countries in sub-Saharan Africa, the regional market characteristics, different market segments. We looked at e-mobility business models in the region, and also looked at the financing needs of companies and sources of financing and recent capital raises. And then it focuses on the market in Nigeria, where we looked at the electricity sector profile, and then market development, recent developments in the market, and highlighting, investment opportunities in the e-mobility market in Nigeria, and also delving into e-mobility as a productive use for green mini grids, and also e-mobility company profiles of e-mobility companies operating in the country. And then lastly, the last section of the developer guide then provides a guide on how to enter into the market, looking at specific investment opportunities and the size of the market, how to register a business, and challenges for businesses, and the financing landscape. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide shows a sneak peek into the document, the developer guide. The table on the left shows a summary of profiles of companies operating in the e-mobility sector in sub-Saharan Africa and in Nigeria specifically. So we profiled 26 companies in sub-Saharan Africa and 16 companies in Nigeria. The table on the left shows a summary of recent financing rounds for e-mobility companies in the region. Next slide, please. Again, a sneak peek into the document. Specifically for the Nigerian market, we detailed the investment opportunities that are available for entrepreneurs, for investors to tap into. And we also detailed innovation opportunities. And the logos there just show some of the companies that are active in the e-mobility space in Nigeria. Next slide, please. Okay, so delving a little deeper into the content of the document, we found that the transportation sector in sub-Saharan Africa accounts for approximately 25% of GHG emissions, and due to increasing urbanization, there are high levels of pollution, which is leading to serious health risks, and particularly motorcycles, which are the fastest growing mode of transportation in the region, account for the largest source of emissions. They emit 3 times more particulate matter than cars. And so the imperative for switching to electric vehicles is clear. Adopting EVs would, lead to decarbonization of transport, reduction of emissions, reduction in pollution, and also reduction in dependence on fossil fuel imports, and more particularly cost savings. Right, EVs on a total cost of ownership basis have lower cost of ownership compared to the conventional ICE vehicles. And adopting EVs also have potential impacts in terms of improving productivity and job creation. Next slide, please. Okay, so even though the e-mobility space and sector is growing in different countries in the region, countries like Ghana, Togo, Benin, Kenya, Uganda are experiencing increase in the adoption of electric vehicles. The growth of the sector is still very limited due to different barriers, including the absence of roadmap to guide EV development, limited access to financing, limited charging infrastructure, unreliable electricity supply, and poor transportation infrastructure. And so to accelerate and expedite the market development, governments would need to provide enabling policies and regulations and incentives, and policies to limit the importation of ICE vehicles, and implementing trade policies and regulations to encourage domestic EV manufacturing. There's also a need for introduction of mechanisms that would promote access to financing for e-mobility companies, and also there's a need for consumer awareness raising. Next slide, please. Particularly in the previous slide, I omitted to mention that Ethiopia is actually a great example of the importance of adopting great incentives and enabling policy framework for e-mobility, with a ban on importation of ICE vehicles. About 100,000 EVs were sold in Ethiopia within the space of 2 years. So just highlighting the importance of adopting a solid policy framework. Please go back to the previous slide. Okay, so focusing on the Nigerian situation, we found that the enabling environment is improving. There's been efforts to improve the policy framework for e-mobility in the country, with the introduction of the Energy Transition Plan, the 10-year Nigerian Automotive Industry Development Plan adopted by the NEDDC, and the Electric Vehicle Development Plan that is yet to be adopted. So these are positive developments in the local market in Nigeria. However, there are still numerous challenges hindering the growth of the mobility sector in Nigeria. Specifically, the lack of a defined roadmap, unreliable power, outdated infrastructure, and the price of fuel is still relatively low compared to other countries in the region. Limited access to financing, FX risks, security issues, lack of awareness, and limited technical expertise. But in terms of market, the market is huge. The market potential is huge. Just for motorcycles alone, the sales of e-motorcycles is projected to reach over 200,000 annually by 2030. So it's obviously clear that the adoption of EVs will depend on the ability to realize cost savings, right? So in the document, we did an analysis, a cost comparison analysis, where we compared the cost of owning an electric motorcycle compared to the cost of owning an ICE motorcycle. And we've presented this on an annualized cost basis. So the capital cost that you see there in that table for the e-motorcycle comprises the cost of the bike and the battery and an additional battery and the cost of the chargers. And then we annualized it by dividing by the expected lifespan of the motorcycle. And as you can see, the e-motorcycle on a total annualized cost basis would cost 734 euros per year, while ICE motorcycle would cost about 960 euros, which is about 224 euros cost savings per month, about 23% cost savings per year, right? So, and it's important to highlight that the cost savings, the ability to generate cost savings will depend on the level of usage of the motorcycle, right? So the scenario that we analyzed there is a high mileage scenario where a commercial bike rider rides about 100 kilometers per day. Next slide. Okay, and then so the market insights package that we prepared also includes two model business cases. The model business cases essentially show hypothetical business opportunities, and we carried out a financial feasibility of these potential business opportunities. The first model business case examined a hypothetical company that offers electric motorcycles on a rental basis in urban areas in Nigeria, and also operating a network of battery swapping stations. The second model business case analyzed a project in a rural area where an EV operator deploys e-motorcycle on a rental basis as well to riders in the rural area, and the batteries of the bikes are charged by power provided by the mini grid operator. And that model business case is loosely based on the pilot that was carried out by Max and Rubitech in a community called Bamu Bamu in Ogun State. This was a couple of years ago. But we've, of course, updated it to account for the current macroeconomic conditions in the country. And so the model business cases, analyze what would happen to the feasibility of these opportunities when there are changes in different variables. Next slide. Okay, so this is just a quick peek into the takeaways from the first model business case. We found that the attractiveness of the company will depend on consistently achieving high vehicle utilization rate, about 69%, and also the ability of the company to increase its daily rental fees to cushion the
members of both cutting across public and private sector that will be joining us here to talk about what they've been doing in the electric mobility space. First of all, I would call on Benjamin Curnier. Benjamin's CV is actually very long and huge, but for now, I would like to summarize. Benjamin is the Principal Green Mini Grid Officer, Sustainable Energy Fund for Africa, CEFA, working on the AfDB. He's an experienced sustainability and management director with nearly 20 years experience in the wide range of sustainability. Thank you, Benjamin, for joining us. Also, Benjamin has a session after this, so another reason why we have to rush. Please give Benjamin a round of applause. Thank you. And also to mention, for those of us that have questions on our market insight, we will take all the questions afterwards, after the session. Please bear with us. Secondly, I'll be calling on Nico. I'm sure a lot of us know Nico, but I'll still, it really does not need introduction, but I'll introduce him for those that don't know him. So Nico is the CEO of the consulting company INENSUS. He has also over 20 years of experience in the energy access space. Nico, sorry, I won't also be able to go through your long CV, but you can all talk about what you do while you're giving your brief. Thank you for joining us, Nico. Thirdly, I'll be calling from the public sector now, Dr. Sunnie Omeiza-Michael. Dr. Sunnie is the Director of Research and Advocacy at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. They're the most active and oldest chamber in West Africa with a mandate for public and policy and advocacy, trade promotion, SME business development, and mentoring. Please help me welcome Dr. Sunnie. Thank you. Last but not the least, Tayo. I hope Tayo is back. Yes, okay. So anyone that wants to know who has been working, the pioneers of electric mobility in Nigeria, or should I even say Africa, we're talking about Tayo. Tayo is the CEO and co-founder of Max. He's an EV and vehicle subscription pioneer, a faith-driven endeavor and social entrepreneur. Tayo is a TED Fellow, long list of accomplishments as well that I would just want to stop here for now. Tayo, thank you for joining us. Please come off stage. Thank you. So we'll just dive right in. Okay. I don't need to introduce myself. I've introduced myself.
Check, one check.
Thank you. Once again, I would want to give the panelists like a few minutes to talk about what they do, after which then I will pose some questions to them, which they will answer. And after the question and answer session from our side, I'll leave room for the audience to ask their questions, and you can let us know if you have anyone on the panel that you will want specifically to answer your question, or we just throw it open. So first and foremost, we'll start with Benjamin. If you can just tell us a little bit of what you do in CEFA AFD, and then I pose my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Very briefly, I am the Principal Mini-Grids Officer for the Sustainable Energy Fund for Africa. So I'm possibly in the wrong room. I look after all of the mini-grid investments for the CEFA fund. The CEFA fund is a multi-donor trust fund that is funded by a number of international donors and is administered by the African Development Bank. I look after a range of programs that includes technical assistance for the mini-grid market, specifically focused on public sector beneficiaries and looking to develop enabling environments. But then I also look after the structuring of concessional investments into mini-grid projects themselves, be they organized at a national country level, or be they implemented by developers themselves. In a previous life, I was responsible for structuring a large NAMA facility funded program for financing two-wheelers in Rwanda.
Thank you, Benjamin. So I'll take my questions, then we'll go to Nico. Is that fine? Thank you. I hope you can hear me. So no, you're not in the wrong room because AfDB is actually working on green mobility facility for Africa, which is the reason, or we think that skews more into what we're here for. So I'm curious to learn about that from the AfDB server, and can you tell us more about the facility?
Yeah, sure. The GMFA, the Green Mobility Facility for Africa, is a recently developed flagship initiative by the African Development Bank that is looking to mobilize a headline figure of $685 million for electric, for alternative, I should say, transportation in Africa. That splits down into both technical assistance and concessional investment buckets. So the vast bulk will be earmarked for concessional investment. That's as much as 680 million, with 6 million being put aside for technical assistance. It targets 6 countries on the continent in the first phase. So that'll be Kenya, Morocco, Nigeria, Rwanda, Senegal, and South Africa. Really, the objective is, given a program of this size, fairly wide-reaching. The technical assistance is obviously designed to tackle enabling environment barriers. So that's all about providing political alignment support at a public beneficiary level, executing feasibility studies in order to understand the deployability of different technologies, and then obviously to follow up with concessional investments, which will be a range of instruments tailored for the individual needs of the sub-projects, if you like. So that'll range from grants, concessional debt instruments, all the way through to guarantees and presumably equity products as well. Maybe just one last point to note: it covers all forms of transport. So we're talking everything from 2, 3-wheelers right through to buses and cars, and covers electric vehicles and also compressed natural gas.
Thank you. That is what is most important for us. It's now we know how we can key in the mobility space into this financing. Thank you. So we know Nigeria is a peculiar market, really. And my question will be, what are the challenges you face in implementing this facility? And do you already have potential solutions for these challenges? Yeah.
The facility is still to some degree on the drawing board because we're busy fundraising for it. I think the latest that I know is that there was a fairly substantial request being put to the African Development Bank board for as much as 200 million of the concession investment. So expect to see, I think, some more headlines around it later on this year. But some of the challenges, I think, around implementing the facility, based on experience we've had of implementing other similar initiatives. I think the first one that I would tackle is, particularly when it comes to technical assistance, is really obtaining a common political vision for a particular market. I mean, I'm drawing parallels here from the mini-grid market based on my day-to-day job, but it's one of the most difficult elements, I think, of technical assistance is obtaining that political buy-in across a range of stakeholders within the public sector environment to share that common vision. And I think Nigeria actually is an exciting point, because in the mini-grid space is one of the examples, I think, of the countries that did successfully do it, and which is why we've seen movement today. So that's one of one challenge, I think, that we need to be aware of. The second point is going to be probably the fact that there are a range of different business models that are still out there. The EV market, or the low carbon transportation market, is still quite nascent. There are, I think, a range of different business models out there and being discussed, as a consequence of which the kinds of interventions, be they regulatory or indeed financial, will have to be different. And I think, therefore, we're going to need to be quite careful about picking those business models that are supported. So that I would say is a key concern. And then I think probably I've got a number here, but in the interest of time, I'll probably wrap it up with one last one, and that is the importance of local beneficiation. How do you ensure that the business models and the technologies that are backed have beneficiation beyond just the deployment of the vehicle on the roads? How do you make sure that you can leverage whatever existing manufacturing capabilities there are in country? How do you make sure that the value add that is created through that value chain is captured locally?
Thank you, Benjamin. I have a few other questions, but I also will pause here for now. But I also needed to mention, thank you for jumping in. I'm sure some of you must have gone through the agenda. I saw Joe's name there, who unfortunately couldn't make it, and Benjamin was quick to fill in. Thank you once again for that. So over to you, Nico. Can you tell us a little bit of what, I know you've done a lot, but please help us summarize what INENSUS has been doing. Please introduce your work to us. Thank you.
Thank you. INENSUS is a 30-staff consulting company based out of Germany, but with a very strong footprint in Africa, also in Nigeria. We are known for being active in the mini-grid space, and some of you may know me as the host of the podcast, The Mini-Grid Business. But in 2020, we decided to widen our field of services to the e-mobility space. And our first assignment was under the Nigerian Energy Support Program with Max. And we supported the NESP in this Gbamu project where Max deployed 10 electric motorbikes. And Gbamu is in Ogun State, a Nigerian state. And so Max rented out the motorbikes to the riders for 1,000 naira per day. And Max purchased the electricity from the mini-grid operator Rubitech. That was a 12-month exercise for us to monitor. And after all, we found that an average of 3.5 kilowatt hours of electricity were consumed by the motorbikes per day. And that gradually increased over the usage time. Interestingly, there was no significant difference between weekdays and weekends, which makes the business case even more interesting for mini-grid operators, especially, because mini-grid operators need reliable loads, reliable demand. Then I believe that there are more synergies between mini-grids and electric bikes, like e-bikes, e-motorbikes, especially because some of the e-bikes, your e-bikes especially, have swappable batteries, which means that you can charge one battery during daytime when there is a surplus of electricity coming from the solar panels, for example, while the other battery is in operation, and then you can swap and use the second battery the next day or during nighttime, and therefore this swapping station is very much appreciated and leads to good use of electricity in solar mini-grids. We also believe that even though mini-grids may not be the, let's say, the focus market for electric vehicle providers, because urban centers, of course, have much more frequency of usage, right? But we still believe that especially interconnected mini-grids that are on a growth path here in Nigeria can be a very attractive target for e-vehicle deployment, because there you find both. You find the reliability of a mini-grid, which can be higher than the main grid, right, which is required to charge the vehicle reliably, and at the same time find the the customer base, which has a relatively high income level and the frequency of usage of these e-bikes. So that was our first engagement in the e-mobility sector here in Africa. Then in 2022, we actually worked for Bodawerk in Uganda, which is a company manufacturing e-bikes, like e-motorbikes in Kampala, and they also manufacture batteries. They import battery cells from China, and they assemble battery packs specifically designed for conditions, environmental conditions in the African market. And at that time, when we started under an assignment with GET.invest Finance Readiness Support, we supported Bodawerk with a sparring approach. They were a startup, right? When you're a startup, your thoughts are all over the place and you have plans in all areas. You want to develop technologies and innovate on the distribution side, and you want to innovate on all different kinds of angles. And then we help them focus and find where their expertise is and where their unique selling proposition is. And that was, after all, in the battery technology, like asset-locked finance for e-bikes through a very smart battery management system that is proprietary to the Bodawerk bikes and is very well adjusted, as I said, to the Ugandan and also to the African market. After all, we supported them in acquiring more than 7 million euros for their battery factory, like in CapEx for the battery factory. And today I learned that even another investment that we kicked off materialized in terms of a working capital facility that was now provided to Bodawerk. So yeah, after all, that assignment was quite successful. We had a third assignment, again under GET.transform and GET.invest, and that was Kara.
Summarize that. Yes.
Yeah, that was Kara. Kara is an e-bicycle manufacturer, also a very small startup, just a few people, based out of Kampala, and the company was growing relatively slowly. It took some time, right? And unfortunately, the period of the assignment to support the company expired before we could actually find an investor. So, but as they are really doing quite well, and they're now looking for and are on the edge towards finding a large distribution partner for their electric bicycles, we even believe that they could be a target for an investment by INENSUS, by my own company, under certain conditions. So we are thinking of that, and we believe that Kara has a good future in the e-mobility sector in Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you, Nico, for an overview of what you've been doing across Africa and also Nigeria. I had a few questions for you, but I see you've actually inculcated the answers to my questions in your speech, because talking about Bodawerk, the success of Bodawerk, and how to really, the success story you've had in these other African countries, how we can replicate same in Nigeria, but you already answered that question. So for now, I'm sure the audience will have their questions for you, so I'll leave questions for you for now. Thank you, Nico. Dr. Sunnie, please, can you give us an overview of what you do and how LCCI relates to the e-mobility space? Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And thank you for inviting the Chamber to be part of this. I should start by saying that the Chamber is not an operator in the system, so we are not part of the science or technicalities of e-mobility. But we have a group at the Chamber, we call it the LCCI Automobile Group, comprising of major vehicle companies in Nigeria, the likes of the Hondas, Meccano Motors, CFAO, SCOA, we have Toyota Nigeria. So these are companies that are members of the Chamber who are big players, or going to be big players in the e-mobility ecosystem. So we are a voice for the private sector, and actually we are not a public sector institution. We speak for the private sector operators. So generally what we do is when policies come up like this, and we see the seriousness of the federal government and also Lagos State especially in adopting e-mobility as another model of transportation. So we are going ahead to see how we make some noise around it, build capacity for our members to have understanding, because first, they must have a good understanding for them to be able to prepare bankable proposals they can take to the banks and get finance and all of that. Even if they are going to get finance from GET.invest, I'm sure GET.invest want to know how well educated, learned are you in this sector before you go into it. So we are going to have some roles to play in that. And at the Lagos Chamber, I take the role of that research and advocacy. So we generally look at what it is that we need to drive the acceptability and adoption of a new model that is coming to the market. That's much of where we play. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sunnie. I see we have less than 13 minutes, so I'll also leave the question for you for now. If we have more time later, I'll pose the question. But like I said, some of my questions, for some reason, you already captured it in your speech. So over to you, Tayo. Can you do an introduction of what you do, and then we'll take it from there.
All right, sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tayo Bamiduro. I'm co-founder and CEO at Max. What Max does is we are a vehicle subscription company, but I'll break that down. We pretty much enable productive users, those are taxi drivers, right, to be able to access the vehicles that they need to work. We bundle a bunch of other services alongside that, including things like health insurance and the maintenance plan as well. We started originally focused on ICE engines, internal combustion engines, petrol engines. And then about 5 years ago, we began our transition into electric. Historically, we've enabled financing for about 30,000 vehicles. We've served about 40,000 drivers. We're currently present in 16 cities in Nigeria, Ghana, and Cameroon. Now, what our platform fundamentally does is to solve some of the friction problems that productive users like taxi drivers face, especially in the two-wheeler space, the motorcycle and the three-wheeler, that we call it keke here. In order to solve some of the market challenges that we witnessed, including access to finance, that's a big one, right? The SME financing gap in Africa is over $300 billion. So we knew financing was a big challenge from day one, and we had to figure out a way to mobilize fleet financing from banks, private credit providers, global investors, etc. The second thing we had a challenge with was financial inclusion. Many of the demography or the drivers in this sector didn't have identities of any kind, right? So we built out systems that enabled us to bring them to create IDs for them, and also we built a credit decisioning engine that enabled us to be able to create credit scores for them that provided a basis for them to then access finance for the vehicles that we provided to them. The third thing that we had to do was to build out the maintenance infrastructure, the customer acquisition infrastructure as well, and also a bunch of other support services that are embedded in this whole subscription package that we deliver to the drivers. Over the last 7 years, we've raised some funding, about $40 million in equity. All of that has gone into building out this and scaling the infrastructure that's needed to actually support the rollout of these vehicles. And then in terms of fleet financing, we've brought on board about 12 financing partners across, from commercial banks to DFIs to private debt providers, etc. The transition to electric over the last 5 years has been very exciting for us. We've heard about some of the work we've done in rural communities like Bamu. But we've also done extensive pilots as well in cities, including Lagos, Accra, as well, and also Ibidun, which is our biggest city of operation today. And what we're very excited about is the promise to deliver even much greater value to our customers. As I mentioned earlier, most of our customers rely on us to earn a living, right? These vehicles are pretty much businesses for them. They're, you would consider them to be micro or small businesses, because this is how they live on a day-to-day basis. What EVs, as we saw in the earlier presentation, enables us to do is to deliver even more value, more savings to these drivers, and ultimately more net income to them. But beyond that, of course, there's other really significant benefits to society. Reducing the emissions. Two-stroke engines, for example, are still very, very much alive in Nigeria and across many parts of Africa today. And two-stroke engines are extremely polluting, right? Are doing a ton of damage to the environment. So that's what Max is doing in a nutshell. The next phase of growth for Max is really progressively replacing our entire fleet with electric and then expanding to more cities and, of course, working in partnership with new financiers, with mini-grid operators, with energy companies to provide the required infrastructure to then drive the large-scale transition away from ICE engines into electric. Thank you.
Thank you, Tayo. While in our booth there, a lot of people kept asking about electric mobility. So for now, I will leave also the questions for you. Apologies, my panelists. We actually had thought we'll be able to go through all the questions. I guess our marketing side has taken a lot of time. So I want to give opportunity because a lot of people kept coming to us to ask questions, and I told them, please look forward to this panel so that you can pose your questions. So okay, I was going to ask how many people have questions so that we can take numbers and see if we still have time to then ask. I have my own questions too. I would still love to ask. Okay, so we'll start from there. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Laomi, please help me with the mic. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, folks. Matt Oros, One Power mini-grid operator in Lesotho and Benin. I'm a big fan of bikes. I'm a biker. And it's been totally natural that we've been speaking about bikes this whole time, but I missed the part where it was discussed why we're not talking about cars and buses and minibuses and 4x4s. Is there a reason why it's just bikes?
Or is there anyone that would love to take?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about, about vehicles, right? Two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, especially from an electric standpoint, you're thinking about infrastructure, you're thinking about cost, you're thinking about financing, you're thinking about market size, etc. Right? When you think about all of these different dimensions of what it takes to actually deliver a mobility solution, it's pretty easy to come to the conclusion that two-wheelers and perhaps three-wheelers are the low-hanging fruit on the journey to electrification. Now, obviously, there's a few other pioneers working on buses as well, like Basigo out of Kenya and a few others. So there's definitely a lot of work going on across all of the different vehicle types. But I think from a scale standpoint, particularly in the short term, I think the evidence suggests that two-wheelers are the easiest, right, lowest hanging fruit to deliver large-scale adoption for electric mobility. But obviously, to your point, all of the other vehicle types are also very, very relevant. But of course, they have significant capex challenges. For example, the pilot in Lagos that was done by Owando with Lagos State government, each bus that they deployed, the U-turn buses, cost about $400,000, right? How much funding is available to deploy those sorts of vehicles at the sort of scale that would move the needle, right? That's a tremendous amount of capital. And we will get there, right? But I think for now, two-wheelers are still, and three-wheelers are the lowest hanging fruit. Yeah.
Thank you, Tayo. Does anyone? Okay, so Daniel.
Hi. So two questions. First one being with regards to charging infrastructure. From what I understand, I think it is majorly attached to mini grids for now. But when you want to scale, maybe to vehicles, to four-wheelers, right? What would you envision would be the model for charging stations or the charging infrastructure? And then the second question has to do with regulation and standards. So in terms of standardizing the product that we get in Nigeria here, batteries, charging stations and whatnot, what's your take on what is obtainable now and where we're going in the next few years with regards to standards and regulation and policies?
Okay, I'll take a stab at that and then I'll hand over to my co-panelists as well. I think to your first question around around infrastructure, charging infrastructure, if I heard that correctly. So if you think about it, right, electric mobility, right, it's two words. It's electric, it's mobility. Right? Electric means power, energy, right? So think all of the problems and complexities of delivering energy, right? Then on the other hand, you have mobility. Think all of the problems of delivering meaningful mobility solutions within the context of Africa. And then add those two problems together. That's what it takes to deliver electric mobility. So on the electric side, obviously, a lot of players already in that space, C&I leasing companies, mini-grid companies, tons of energy companies, discos, etc. All of them working together to build different types of solutions to provide that infrastructure. Now, for our company, specifically at Max, we're not fundamentally a power company, right? So the approach that we've taken is to partner with companies that are specialized in providing are fairly reliable and clean energy at the designated locations where the battery stations or charging stations are needed, right? So there's tons of players who have deep, long-standing expertise in the area of delivering clean energy reliably in a distributed way that's, etc. And those folks are attacking that problem, right? Now, obviously, there's the financing challenge as well, right? Almost every company in Africa is some sort of embedded finance company, right? Because in order to deliver your products to most of the customers that you serve, most of them don't have cash to buy what you're selling off at once. So you have to figure out a way to make it easy for them to purchase your product. And that's why all of us operators in the space across mobility, energy, etc., all need more financing lines, both on the debt side, on the equity side, and mezzanine, and all other forms of capital, to be able to scale and harvest the opportunity in front of us. And to your question on policy, it's ongoing, right? The Nigerian government has set up the Energy Transition Office and a bunch of other organizations and think tank groups, etc., that are working together to create harmonized approaches that would enable us to accelerate this energy transition, right? Is it completely done? No, right? There's the tremendous amount of work that still needs to be done. If you look at it at a Pan-African level, of course, some countries are ahead, right? Like Rwanda has a much clearer framework already. Kenya is making a lot of progress as well. Ghana is doing the same. Nigeria is not too far off. Ethiopia has done a tremendous amount of work as well. So on the policy side, a lot has been done, right? But there's still a tremendous amount of work that still needs to be done. Ideally, maybe at the AU or at the Pan-African level. And I'm sure AfDB is doing a lot of work trying to drive that conversation with governments as well, especially with the funding that's been mobilized. Obviously, countries that are much further along in the policy frameworks, taking out duties, etc., whatever is needed to accelerate this transition will get more of the funding upfront. So I think the race is on. Lots of progress, but still huge amounts of gaps as well.
Nico?
I think you summarized it nicely. You already said, Tayo, that you want 100% renewable energy for your electric vehicles. And if you look into some countries like Ethiopia, for example, or Uganda, you have 100%, close to 100% renewable energy in your grid, right? And you just plug in and you charge. And when you talk about electric motorbikes or electric bicycles or electric three-wheelers, you're talking about a relatively small amount of energy that need to be charged into the vehicles. So therefore, this could be done in a few hours, right? How long does it take to charge your vehicle? 3 hours? 2 hours. See, yeah. And that is that is fast chargers, or that is also at a regular socket? 3 hours at a regular socket. See, it's not much time, right? So that is one thing. Of course, here in Nigeria, you have close to 100% non-renewable energy in your network, so it's a little bit more challenging. But at the same time, look at the solar PV panel market, right? At the moment, you can purchase PV panels for $0.10 per watt peak. Like lower than ever. And therefore, any electricity coming out of these panels, and you don't even need to convert it into AC, right? There are chargers where you can take it directly from the panel, put it into a DC-DC converter, put it into the battery. That's it. So your charging station doesn't need to cost much, right? It's basically pocket money.
Thank you, Nico. So we have less than 1 minute. We'll take the two questions together and see if we can get one of our panelists to address the two questions. Thank you.
Yep. First of all, thank you so much for a good discussion here. My name is Magnus Nielsen. I work for the Danish DFI called IFU. We are an investor interested in both EVs and mini-grid developers. So I have a question on the bit related to your question. on the EV charging infrastructure. Nico, how do you see the interactions between EV companies and mini-grid developers in supplying this infrastructure?
The next question, please. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I think mine are very simple questions. There are two. One is to do with how you're dealing with e-waste from the e-mobility. And the last one is on the regulations. I think I've noted that most countries are going into e-mobility when the regulations are not yet in place. So I just want to learn from you the lessons that you have learned when you're implementing e-mobility when the regulations are not yet in place. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think the first question was to you, Nico.
Yeah, thank you. This was a question on how mini-grid companies work together with e-mobility providers. So far, we have seen experiments. We've seen some mini-grid companies coming up with their own models. And I think this is probably one of the easier ways to go, that mini-grid companies themselves basically acquire e-mobilities, two-wheelers, mainly three-wheelers potentially, and then run the scheme in their mini-grids. The challenge in mini-grids is the distance, right? It's the distance and the relatively low density. Think of 20 motorbikes in one mini-grid. For that, you need a maintenance hub. For that, you need to go there regularly to provide spare parts. For that, you need to somehow go to site to repair things, the chargers, the bikes, right? And the bikes also have wear parts, right? So you need to somehow maintain them. And therefore, we need capable technical staff on site. And that is usually not really something that companies like Max or like Bodaberg or GoGo Electric or others would like to do because it's extra effort. It's like the lower hanging fruits at the moment are in the urban centers for these companies. But the mini-grid companies themselves, they have technical expertise. They usually don't like to go into too many different businesses, but if they see an opportunity, they grab it, right? And I think what we need is some kind of matchmaking, right? And it's not you who need to go into these rural areas. It's basically you needing to provide bikes with a certain financing package, because financing is something that mini-grid operators usually don't have. And then they can operate it, they can manage it, and they probably need training from you. So that is what I see will be the rollout of e-bikes in mini-grids. And now I prepared some small numbers for that. Like, just imagine Nigeria with its 10,000 planned mini-grids. Like, Rea is thinking about electrifying 10,000 rural villages with mini-grids in the coming 5, 7, 8 years or so. And just imagine just 20 vehicles per mini-grid, and then say 50% of those villages are covered by the 20 vehicles. We are already talking about 100,000 vehicles, right? It's not a small market. It's something that you can really seriously think about.
Thank you, Nico. Tayo, would you want to take the second question? Talking about e-waste, sorry, apologies, can you come again?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, e-waste is a big thing. There are a few innovators as well, right? If you think about the electric mobility value chain and energy value chain, the exciting thing is that there are specialist companies that are addressing different dimensions of the value chain. There are companies like, I think, Hinkley Recycling, right? And a few others who are building very specialist capabilities around the ability to turn around the old batteries, etc., that need to be recycled. One single company isn't definitely doing it all, right? But I think as long as all of the right partners continue to work together, right, across the continent, e-waste isn't really going to be such a big challenge. But some of the dynamics in there, in our case, when we looked at it initially, was we considered potentially moving or shipping back some of the old batteries back to the manufacturers, right? A lot of them are obviously in Asia. But when we looked at the cost of transportation and a bunch of other things, it just didn't make economic sense to do that. And then what we started seeing was a few specialist companies setting up operations locally in different parts of the continent, including in Nigeria, who are able to take on the complexity of recycling the batteries and managing the waste properly. So It's a very critical aspect of the transition to electric mobility. There are a few companies that are already working in that area, and I don't foresee a big challenge in that area going forward.
Thank you, everyone. We've really gone past our time.
Just one point on the e-mobility, on the e-waste point, and that really highlights, I think, some of this political alignment and market signals that the government needs to make. In Rwanda, you have the government already being very clear about the speed at which they want to move to electric vehicles, and therefore being able to enter into conversations with European waste management companies to set up battery recycling facilities on the ground in Kigali. And so that is the kind of signal, that alignment is what's needed in order to send the right signal to set up the facilities locally in order to deal with that.
Thank you, Benjamin. I was going to say again, Benjamin has another session, so we need to wrap up actually because I see so they've come to get him. Thank you, everyone. And I would say most of your questions and answers, they are already in the developer guide we came up with in the Market Insight package. Please come around, come get a copy, come scan a copy. You'll get answers in terms of your policy questions, in terms of the stakeholders, in terms of the e-waste. All the questions are answered in the Market Insight document we were able to develop. So please, I once again want to say thank you to our panelists. Thank you everyone for the active participation, and we look forward to you joining our other sessions. Thank you.
You want to move over here, maybe? Okay. All right.